In just 32 seconds, one of Hollywood's toughest actors went from calm and collected to absolutely furious, unleashing a verbal takedown so intense that security had to get involved. What started as simple questions about his latest project turned into a full-blown battle that ended with Tom Hardy storming off the set, leaving the entire studio in complete shock. Last night's episode was supposed to be straightforward. Tom Hardy was there to talk about his new action movie and maybe share some behind-the-scenes stories. The audience was excited, the cameras were rolling, and everything seemed normal. But from the very first question, you could feel something was off. Joy Behar had that look in her eyes. The one that says, "She's not here to play nice." Tom walked out wearing his usual leather jacket and boots, gave a little wave to the crowd, and sat down. The audience clapped and cheered because everyone loves Tom Hardy. He's Batman, he's Venom, he's the guy who does all his own stunts and never complains. But Joy barely let him get comfortable before she started. "So, Tom, welcome to the show," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I've been reading about your new movie, and I have to say, it's another one of those violent action films. Don't you ever get tired of playing the tough guy who solves everything with his fists?" The audience got quiet. That wasn't exactly a warm welcome. Tom shifted in his seat and laughed a little, trying to keep things light. "Well, Joy, I wouldn't say my characters solve everything with violence. There's usually a lot more going on beneath the surface. These are complex people dealing with difficult situations." Joy waved her hand like she was swatting away a fly. "Complex? Come on. You punch people, things explode, roll credits. That's the formula, isn't it? And you've done it in, 15 movies now?" Tom's smile got tighter. You could see his jaw clench just a tiny bit. "I think you're oversimplifying things quite a lot there. The characters I choose to play have depth. They have stories. Just because there's action in a film doesn't mean there's no meaning behind it." "Meaning," Joy repeated, and she actually laughed. "What meaning is there in watching people beat each other up for 2 hours? Honestly, Tom, don't you think Hollywood has enough violence? Don't you think you have a responsibility to do something different?" The other hosts on the panel looked uncomfortable. One of them tried to jump in with a different question, but Joy kept going. She leaned forward in her chair, pointing her finger at Tom like she was scolding a child. "I mean, look at the world right now. We have real violence happening every single day. Kids are watching these movies and thinking that's how you solve problems. And here you are, making millions of dollars by glorifying it. How does that make you feel?" Tom's face changed. The friendly, easygoing movie star disappeared, and suddenly you were looking at someone who was genuinely angry. He sat up straighter and looked Joy right in the eyes. "How does it make me feel?" he repeated slowly. "It makes me feel like you haven't actually watched any of my films. It makes me feel like you invited me here just to lecture me about something you clearly don't understand." The audience gasped. You don't talk to Joy Behar like that on her own show. But Tom wasn't backing down. "You want to talk about responsibility? Let's talk about it. I work with stunt coordinators, safety teams, and fight choreographers who spend months making sure every single punch looks real without anyone getting hurt. I visit children's hospitals and military bases. I use my platform to raise money for veterans and animal shelters. But you don't want to talk about any of that, do you? You just want to sit there and judge me for entertaining people." Joy's face turned red. She wasn't used to guests fighting back, especially not like this. "Oh, please, don't try to make yourself sound like a hero. You make violent movies and you profit from them. That's the bottom line. And you make a living by attacking people on television." Tom shot back. "So what's the difference? At least my movies don't pretend to be something they're not. People know exactly what they're getting when they buy a ticket. Can your audience say the same thing about this show?" The studio got so quiet you could hear people breathing. The camera operators didn't know where to point their cameras. The other hosts were frozen in their seats. This was going way beyond normal talk show banter. This was a real fight. Joy tried to regain control. She forced a laugh and looked at the audience like she was trying to get them on her side. "Well, someone's a little sensitive today. Can't handle a few tough questions, Tom?" "Tough questions?" Tom's voice got louder. "You haven't asked me a single real question. You've just been taking shots at me since I sat down. If you wanted to have an actual conversation about violence in media, I'd be happy to do that. But you don't want a conversation. You want to grandstand and make yourself look smart by tearing down someone else. Joy's smile vanished completely. Now she was angry too. Excuse me? This is my show, and I'll ask whatever questions I want. If you can't handle it, maybe you shouldn't be here. Maybe I shouldn't, Tom agreed. And he started to stand up. One of the other hosts finally jumped in. Wait, let's just take a breath here. Tom, we'd love to hear about the actual movie. The stunts must have been incredible to film, but Joy talked right over her. No. If he wants to leave, let him leave. We don't need someone who can't have a grown-up conversation. Tom stopped moving. He sat back down, but you could tell it wasn't because he wanted to calm things down. It was because he had more to say. A grown-up conversation, he said quietly, and his voice had this dangerous edge to it. You want to have a grown-up conversation, Joy? All right. Let's talk about how you've built a career out of belittling people. Let's talk about how you invite guests onto your show, just so you can ambush them with your opinions disguised as questions. Let's talk about how you hide behind this panel of women, acting like you're speaking truth to power, when really you're just a bully with a microphone. The audience didn't know whether to gasp or applaud. Some people did both. Joy's face went from red to almost purple. How dare you, she shouted. I have fought for women's voices to be heard for decades. I've interviewed presidents and world leaders. I don't need some action star telling me how to do my job. And I don't need some talk show host who's never been on a film set in her life telling me that I'm destroying society because I make movies where the good guys fight the bad guys. Tom fired back. You know what's actually harmful? Making people feel ashamed for enjoying things. Making actors feel like they have to apologize for their work. You're not a journalist, Joy. You're not even asking questions. You're just throwing accusations at me and expecting me to sit here and take it. Joy grabbed her note cards and slapped them down on the table. I am asking you to take accountability. You have influence, whether you like it or not. Young people look up to you. And what are you teaching them? That violence is cool? That being tough means being violent? Tom leaned forward, and his voice got very calm, which somehow made it even more intense. I'm teaching them that heroes stand up for what's right. I'm teaching them that protecting people sometimes requires sacrifice. I'm teaching them that courage comes in many forms. What are you teaching them, Joy? That it's okay to attack someone just because you disagree with their career choices? That it's fine to be rude to someone you just met because you have a TV show? I am not being rude, Joy shouted, which was ironic because she was absolutely being rude. Really? Tom asked. Because from where I'm sitting, you've insulted my work, questioned my intelligence, and dismissed everything I've said without even trying to understand it. If that's not rude, I don't know what is. Another host tried again to steer things in a different direction. Maybe we can talk about Tom's charity work? He's done some amazing things with animal rescue organizations. I don't care about his charity work, Joy interrupted. And that was when you knew this was going to end badly. I care about the message he's sending through his movies. Actions speak louder than words, Tom. And your actions are making violent films. Tom stood up. For real this time. He unclipped his microphone and set it on the table very carefully, like he was trying really hard not to throw it. You know what, Joy? You're right about one thing. Actions do speak louder than words. And right now, my action is going to be walking off this stage. Because I don't have to sit here and be disrespected by someone who's more interested in hearing herself talk than actually listening to anyone else. Joy stood up too. Fine. Leave. That's what people do when they can't defend themselves, right? They run away. I'm not running away, Tom said. And his voice was ice cold now. I'm choosing not to waste another second of my time on someone who's already made up their mind about me without knowing a damn thing about who I am. You want to know why people watch my movies, Joy? It's because in my movies, the good guys actually win. They don't sit around and tear each other apart for no reason. Maybe you should try watching one sometime. You might learn something about basic human decency. The audience was going crazy now. Some people were clapping. Some were booing. Everyone was talking. Joy's face was so red she looked like she might explode. Get out! She yelled, pointing at the exit. Get off my stage! I'm going, Tom said. I was going anyway. I don't need you to tell me. He started walking toward the exit. And you could hear Joy still yelling behind him. That's right, walk away. Just like a child throwing a tantrum. This is what happens when people can't handle criticism. Tom stopped. He turned around one more time. The whole studio held its breath. Criticism would require you to actually know what you're talking about, he said. What you did here today wasn't criticism, Joy. It was a hit job. And everyone watching knows it. You didn't bring me on this show to have a conversation. You brought me on to attack me. And you're upset that I didn't just sit here and take it like every other guest who's afraid of you. I'm not afraid of anything, Joy shouted back. Especially not some actor with an ego problem. Tom laughed. But it wasn't a happy laugh. Ego problem? That's rich coming from you. I came here to talk about a movie I'm proud of. A movie that hundreds of people worked incredibly hard on. But you couldn't let that happen, could you? You had to make it about yourself and your opinions. You had to prove that you're the smartest person in the room. Well, congratulations, Joy. You proved something all right. You proved that you're exactly what people say you are. And what's that? Joy demanded. A bully, Tom said simply. A bully who hides behind jokes and an audience and a panel of co-hosts. But you're still just a bully. The other hosts looked like they wanted to disappear into their chairs. The audience was in complete chaos. Some people were standing up, some were shouting. Cameras were moving everywhere, trying to catch every angle. Joy grabbed her coffee mug like she was thinking about throwing it. But one of the producers ran onto the stage. They were trying to calm everyone down, trying to get Tom to stay, trying to get Joy to sit down. I don't need to stay here and be insulted, Joy yelled at the producer, which was funny because she'd been insulting Tom for the past 10 minutes. No one's insulting you, Joy, Tom said tiredly. I'm just telling you the truth. And if you can't handle that, well, maybe you shouldn't be hosting a show where you dish it out all the time. That was the final straw. Joy threw her note cards in the air. Actual papers flying everywhere. It was like a movie scene, which was kind of perfect considering who she was fighting with. Get him out of here, she screamed at security. I want him off my stage right now. 2 security guards appeared, but they looked really uncomfortable. Tom Hardy is a big guy, and he hadn't done anything violent. He was just standing there. But Joy was screaming, and the producers were panicking, and the whole thing was complete madness. Tom held up his hands like he was surrendering, but his face showed he wasn't sorry at all. Don't worry, I'm leaving. I wouldn't stay here if you paid me, which, by the way, you didn't. I came here as a favor to your producers, and this is how you treat guests? Unbelievable. He turned to the audience and gave them a little bow. Some people cheered. A lot of people cheered, actually. Tom smiled at them, a real smile this time, and waved. Thanks for being here, everyone, he called out to the crowd. Sorry you had to witness this. Go see the movie. At least there, the villain gets what's coming to them. Joy heard that and absolutely lost it. She started shouting something, but her microphone had been turned off by the control booth. You could see her mouth moving, see her face all twisted up with anger, but no sound was coming out. It would have been funny if it wasn't so uncomfortable to watch. Tom walked off the stage with his head held high. He didn't run, didn't rush, didn't look back, just walked right out of there like he owned the place. Meanwhile, Joy was still standing at the desk, breathing hard, papers all over the floor around her, looking like she'd just been through a war. The other hosts were whispering to each other, probably trying to figure out how they were going to finish the show. The audience was still buzzing with energy. The producers were running around like chickens with their heads cut off. It was total chaos. One of the co-hosts finally unmuted her microphone and tried to say something about going to commercial, but her voice was shaking. You could tell everyone was completely shocked by what had just happened. This wasn't some little disagreement. This was a full-scale meltdown on live television. Security guards followed Tom as he walked backstage, not because he was being dangerous, but probably to make sure Joy didn't chase after him. Through the curtain, you could still hear her voice yelling about respect and her show, and how dare he speak to her that way. Someone in the audience shouted, "Team Tom!" and a bunch of other people cheered. That made Joy even angrier. She pointed at the audience section where the shout came from. "You people don't even know what you're cheering for," she yelled. "He disrespected me on my own show." One of the co-hosts, looking absolutely terrified, tried to calm her down. "Joy, maybe we should just take a break and—" "I don't need a break." Joy snapped at her own co-host. "I need people to understand that you can't just come on this show and talk to me like that. I've been doing this for years. Years. But Tom was already gone. He was probably in his car by now, driving away from the studio, while Joy was still on stage having a meltdown about what just happened. The producers finally managed to cut to commercial, and you could see the commercial break sign light up. But the damage was done. In less than an hour, Tom Hardy had gone from welcomed guest to kicked-off troublemaker, all because he refused to sit quietly while Joy Behar tore apart his career and his choices. He'd stood up for himself, called her out on her behavior, and walked away with his dignity intact. Joy, on the other hand, was left standing on her stage, surrounded by scattered papers and uncomfortable co-hosts, having completely lost control of her own show. The person who was supposed to be in charge, asking the questions and guiding the conversation, had instead turned into someone screaming and throwing things because her guest had the nerve to disagree with her. It was supposed to be a simple interview about a movie. Instead, it became a battle of wills between a Hollywood actor who wasn't afraid to speak his mind and a talk show host who couldn't handle being challenged. And in the end, Tom Hardy did exactly what his movie characters do. He stood his ground, said what needed to be said, and walked away on his own terms. The audience would be talking about this for weeks. Social media would explode with clips and reactions. People would take sides, argue about who was right, debate whether Tom should have stayed calmer or whether Joy should have been more professional. But none of that mattered to Tom Hardy, who was already miles away from that studio, probably feeling pretty good about not taking anyone's crap, not even on national television. And that's how what should have been a normal movie promotion turned into one of the most dramatic, heated, and unforgettable moments in talk show history.